This episode of What Do You Say with DDJ is dedicated to the memory of Pedro Luis Garcia Sr., otherwise known as Tio Pedro. Following this little message will be a 10 seconds of silence in his honor, and then the episode will proceed as normal.
Attention wrestling fans, you're now about to listen to the man coming down the aisle from the main streets of South Elgin, Illinois, with a microphone in his hand and questions on his mind. This is What Do You Say with DDJ.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 27 of What Do You Say with DDJ. As always, I'm your host, DDJ, and joining me this week is Paragon, 1/3 of the Tribunal. You can catch him on CCW Saturday Night Grapple Masters, which is available on Amazon Prime, Fight TV, Powered 4 TV. It's available all over where you can do a lot of streaming and stuff. So, grab a cold one, grab a snack, get comfy, kick back, and enjoy this episode of What Do You Say with DDJ? And my guest this week, Paragon.
Hello there, wrestling fans. This is John Bullard, owner of Chicagoland Championship Wrestling, and you're listening to What Do You Say with DDJ.
All right, welcome to another episode of What Do You Say with DDJ? And joining me this week is the vainglorious and notorious Paragon. Paragon, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to do this with me. How are you this morning?
Paragon is here. Paragon normally says he is always vainglorious, but Paragon be lying if he said he was feeling that way today. But you know what? I'm here and I'm ready to have some fun. I'm ready to talk some talk and walk some more.
All righty then. Well, I'm definitely going to make this fun. I know talking to you before we started recording, you had some things happen. I'm not going to say anything out of respect. I mean, if you want to bring it up, by all means, go ahead.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Because actually, it still ties into Paragon himself. When I first stepped in the business, part of my catchphrase, I used to have this huge long catchphrase. I would say it was a whole spiel, and I would say that Paragon has greatness written on his ass, literally. And like sometimes as a joke, I would have somebody take a sticky note, slap it on my butt, and then I turn around and use some greatness on there. But so my uncle Pedro, my tío Pedro, he was the one that used to say that. He'd always be like, "Boy, you got greatness written on your ass. It's in your essence." He's like, not everybody has that. See, our family does not make losers. We make champions. We make greatness. And he's like, and greatness was thrusted upon you back when you was in the womb. He was like, you got this all on you. Can you dig it? And I'd be like, all right, up. And I used to start using that as like my own moniker because it was a tribute to my uncle.
Right.
He is actually who taught me how to fight and who got me into MMA. He is the one who taught me a lot about self-love and respecting oneself, both emotionally and physically when it comes to taking care of your body. He was also a herbalist, so he was always like, "Oh, you're dealing with this? Take some of that. You're dealing with this? Eat some of that. Dealing with that? If you massage that part of the muscle." And so he also taught me a lot about love. Him and my aunt were together from her 18th birthday until yesterday, when my uncle sadly passed away. But just it's paramount the way that he passed away. My uncle was in his 70s. I want to say close to mid 70s, and he passed away. He somebody's car got stuck in the snow, and he helped them push their car out of the snow. Like I said, he's in his 70s. Helped somebody push their car out of the snow. He came inside. He sat down in his chair, and he went. And just to
Wow.
think, like, man, my uncle in his dying moments was a hero, was himself, because that's the type of person he was. I don't know how many times we would tell him, Unc, you got to sit down, you're doing too much. And he'd be over here doing handstand push-ups and stuff. Unc, you got to sit down, you're doing too much. First person you know that, has a heart attack and stroke. And the moment that he's out the hospital and able to walk around, he starts tending to his garden. And like, he's just a different type. He was a different type of cat. He was a true inspiration. And he honestly, that allowed Paragon to have belief in himself. And so this is also kind of, for me, a tribute to him, because I know if he was here, and I know he's looking down right now, he'd probably be like, nephew, you better go on and handle your business. So that's what I'm here right now.
Yeah, I'd like to take a moment to dedicate this episode in the memory of your uncle and stuff. I lost my favorite uncle probably about 5 years ago, and he could be a little hot-headed at times, but he had the biggest heart in the world, and he would give you the shirt off his back if he could. So, man, I feel for you, man. I feel for your family. All nothing but love coming from me at What Do You Say with DDJ, man. So, love and condolences to you and your family.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So how did you discover professional wrestling?
So it wasn't this uncle, but it was another one of my uncles. He was a huge wrestling fan. And I was about 2 years old, and he sat me down and he's like, you see that boy right there? That boy right there, he's the future. I'm telling you right now, can't nobody tell me different. That boy right there is the future. You watch. And so I'm 2 years old, and I'm already enamored with everything going on, because it feels like I'm watching, like, real life superheroes and villains fight. All the colorful spandex and stuff, and the crazy ways that they would talk. But the person in particular he was talking about was Rocky Maivia.
Oh, wow.
And so I got to watch Rocky Maivia's debut Raw match with my uncle. And I just got so enamored with who Rocky Maivia was, and hearing his story and hearing everything he was. I began to follow his journey. And with following his journey, I was like, yo, like, this is my guy. This is my dog right here. This is my hero. And just watching him do what he did, and his just charisma, and seeing him, get to become himself, not who he thought people wanted him to be, but getting to see him become himself. And that meant a lot for me, because representation matters. A lot of people don't understand how much representation matters. But as a young brown boy who was also very charismatic and had a loud mouth, and a lot of times people told him to be quiet. And so to see somebody who was also, that looked like me, who was also charismatic and had a loud mouth and was unapologetically himself, it made me feel like, you know what, this is something I need to be watching. I've been following The Rock ever since, but he's the reason why I fell in love with wrestling.
Okay.
But the reason I decided to actually become a professional wrestler was another hero of mine, who I would say is he's my number one. If you ask, who's your top three of all time, Eddie Guerrero. He actually, I was a huge fan of him. He was a huge inspiration. Once again, another brown guy, but a brown small guy at that, someone around my height, around my size, doing incredible things. And the night that he won the WWE Championship off of Brock Lesnar, I was like, I want to become a professional wrestler.
Wow.
The night he passed away, I looked up at heaven and I said, Eduardo Gory Guerrero, in tribute of you being my hero, I'm going to become a professional wrestler for you. So actually, my entire wrestling career is a tribute to my hero.
That's an amazing story. It's probably one of the, and I'm not just saying it because you're here right here with me and stuff, but one of the things I've always asked is, like, who some of like your early favorites were, and you mentioned The Rock, but just the way you just talked about Eddie Guerrero, that's easily one of the most impactful, powerful answers I've ever had about that question, when it comes to early favorites. And I think that's just simply amazing. Now, quick question about The Rock. Did you ever envision he would become who he is now, where he's, not only, he did all the things he did in wrestling, but what he's doing in Hollywood? Did you even think it was possible for him to do that?
Most definitely. If I'm being honest with you, I thought he would do more.
Wow.
I look at The Rock, kind of like the way some people look at LeBron James.
Mm-hmm.
He's somebody who came into his respective field with so much hype, that there was greatness thrust upon them and they had a lot to live up to.
Mm-hmm.
And they were constantly being compared to others. Sometimes they're contemporaries, like, The Rock would get compared to Stone Cold, LeBron would get compared to D Wade and Carmelo.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they were getting compared to the people who were deemed to be the greats of yesteryear. LeBron being compared to Jordan and The Rock being compared to Hogan. Um, and I honestly thought The Rock would do more, at least from a wrestling standpoint. And it's crazy to say when you think how much he has done,
Right.
But I also look at him and I'm like, when you look at the guy's build, his in-ring ability, his charisma, his marketability, I mean, he's literally he's the highest paid actor in Hollywood multiple times. He's one of the biggest stars in the world multiple times. And I'm looking at this guy and I'm like, man, like this should have happened sooner. Either you should have left WWE sooner or they should have seen the just sheer talent they had and should have gave you the keys even more. Like I've heard the interviews with him and Foley, and they would talk about how many times they were given the keys to just do a promo, or they would, ask for forgiveness, after asking for permission later, they would just go for it. And I think about that and I'm like, man, if they would have seen what they had and realized that earlier, maybe wrestling would have been pop culture longer than it actually became. Maybe he would have stayed longer. We never know. But yeah, and that's not a knock on him because he's done amazing things. He is a benchmark. I believe anybody who wants to become a professional wrestler but wants to become a star, not just, I want to wrestle. Anybody can wrestle. You can wrestle in the backyard. You can wrestle in Coliseum. Anybody can be a wrestler, but not everybody can be a star. And that's honestly something that's missing from a lot of the TV product right now. You don't have a lot of stars. You have a lot of people who are popular. You have a lot of people who are respected. You have a lot of people who are well-liked. You have a lot of people who are the workhorses and the heads of something, but you don't have a lot of stars. If you want to see how to be a star, The Rock is a perfect example how to do so.
I wholeheartedly agree with that and stuff. I mean, he's got a lot of really good movies out. Well, let me ask you that. We're talking about movies. What's your favorite movie he's been in so far?
All right, so this movie, a lot of people I don't even think they know about. It's called Faster. And it's a movie.
I've seen that one. That was really good.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't really talk about it. And I'm like, this was, to me, it's easy for someone who has a signature voice or a certain charisma about them. It's
Right.
easy for them to speak and stuff like that. But to have a movie where your body language and your facials, that's your acting, to me, that's powerful. Like there's a movie that a lot of people don't like called 1,000 Words that Eddie Murphy is in.
Okay.
Because they're like, how do you take away one of the greatest things Eddie Murphy has, which is his voice and his speaking? And I'm like, because this movie wasn't about just comedy. It was also about his acting. It's about storytelling through body movement and visuals. It's honestly, it's something with wrestling. With wrestling, a lot of wrestling isn't verbal. A lot of wrestling is the facials and the grimaces. It's the grabbing a hold and your body responding to it. It's the falling from something and not only conveying to the camera and your opponent, but also the audience that you're in pain and making them care. That's why I would say out of all the movies he's been in, I would say Faster is probably my favorite. My number two is probably the first Jumanji movie.
Yes, I love that. I love that one. That's a great one.
That's one where I was like, it's difficult for me because I love the original Jumanji so much, and I was like, man, do I like this one more than the original? Especially when I see that they paid the tribute to Robin Williams. Because at first I was like, is this going to be its own thing? Oh snap! It's a sequel. Okay, you got me hooked. And then if I had to say my third favorite Rock movie, Central Intelligence, the first movie he did with Kevin Hart.
Okay, yeah.
To me, the timing of it was funny, but also his acting was so weird because he was playing a nerd in a jock's body.
Yep.
And so, you're seeing this big hulking guy, but then you see how he sees this small dude that's like, you're the greatest thing ever. You're this, you're that. And I'm like, man, this is weird. And a lot of people don't understand the brilliance in this. I'll be 26 in June. And I've been acting for 23 years. I've been on commercials, PSAs, I've been on stage, and I've studied a lot of acting. I even went to school for film and screenwriting and script writing. And so the pure just mastery that is shown, that is not understood by like some of the common fans, or that goes over some people's heads because they don't understand the certain dualities of certain worlds. I wish people could see the brilliance that that one particular role had, because he's doing something that's very uncommon. You know, this isn't one of those Freaky Friday situations where you're trying to mimic the other actor. You know, no, this is a situation where this person is trying to be the complete opposite of anything that they have ever been. And because, you know, a lot of times they try to have you as an actor dig deep from something, you know, dig deep from this trauma, dig deep from this experience, dig deep from this. And I'm like, this dude was born with abs. What are he gonna dig deep from? No, but but yeah, so those would probably be my top three favorite rock movies.
Yeah. Those are some really good ones. One that I'm actually a pretty big fan of is Walking Tall. I really enjoyed that one as well.
Oh yeah, that was a good one. That was especially because, you know, to me it was like a modern take on a western.
Yep.
You know, so like just that I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna wreck shop, let y'all know who the hell I am, and then leave type thing. It was very brilliant in my opinion. Once again, though, a lot of action movies don't get a lot of love by critics, and a lot of times people don't really take action movies seriously. But honestly, some of the best scenes and some of the best lines not only come from action movies, but sometimes they have some really deep stuff in there. And I
Oh,
feel like,
absolutely.
yeah, I just feel like a lot of things when it comes to entertainment, so many times people only watch the surface. They don't see the underlying context and messages. And that's not everybody's deal, you know, but me, I analyze stuff. I overanalyze stuff because to me that's how you can sometimes appreciate something. It's not just looking
Agreed.
at the surface, but looking at the meaning behind stuff, looking at the deeper meaning, some things that may not have been intended that could mean something. To me, I get something out of that.
One of my you talk about like stuff that gets really deep in these action movies. One of the one thing I first initially thought of, or immediately thought of when you were talking there, was at the end of, I believe it was the seventh Fast and the Furious movie, when they did that little the thing where basically Paul Walker, they essentially wrote him off, where like Dom's going one way, he goes off on his own, and I just thought that was they couldn't have done hit Paul Walker any better than the way they did in that movie. And I'll never forget that song that played during it.
Oh man, get you in your
Give,
feels.
yes, and it really is taken on, and that song's really taken on like a even bigger significance in my life, because I lost my father about a little over a year and a half ago, and
My condolences, Michael.
thank you. And the way you described your uncle is kind of how I've always thought about my dad, and I still to this day do. So that kind of really got me in the feels. But going back to that song, it's just, I remember my niece who is she's just turned 12. We were at my parents' house not long. I think it was before my dad passed. Like the whole family was there, and she was telling me about this song, and I was like, "Wait a minute, it sounded familiar." It's like, and I pulled it up on my phone and I listened to it, and then I just went back to when I saw that movie and that scene and stuff, and it's just such a touching tribute in a movie that really is just full of action. So yeah, so that hearing that just made me think of that right away. So kind of getting back into wrestling here a little bit. You'd mentioned about how when you watched Eddie Guerrero defeat Brock Lesnar for the WWE title, back in 2004, that's when you knew that's when you wanted to become, a professional wrestler. So that answers that question. What did your like the people that were around you that you were watching this with think about that? And then like when you actually said, I'm going to train for this, what was the reaction that you got from your family and friends?
Well, watching the moment of Eddie was big for everybody. We were all hyped. We were all excited.
Mhm.
We were rooting for him because it was kind of one of those moments where it was real. We felt that. The story of the person who's made their mistakes and they've had to pay for their sins, but now they're trying to atone for them and make good on them. You know the story of being the underdog, having to fight. The Cerberus almost. And also, once again, as a person of color, we know what it's like when you're having to combat, what feels like to be your oppressor, because that was definitely something even Brock tried to bring into the storyline, was their differences in culture and stuff.
Right.
And so there was just so much in that story that was relatable that we kind of cheered for that. What's funny though is when I told my family, like I want to be a wrestler, I'm going to be a wrestler. A lot of them laughed and was like, "It's just a phase. You like wrestling now, but once you get older, you grow out of it. You grow out of it. You grow out of it." And I had a few family members, my uncle included, who believed in me and was like, "You can do it. You just got to put the work in." They were like, "Because you have the talent to do it, but there's going to be some work along the way, and you got to be willing to put it in." Um, but yeah, there's a lot of people that they just kept like, "You're going to grow out of it. You're going to grow out of it." And then elementary school ends, and I start middle school. You're going to grow out of it. You're going to grow out of it. High school starts. You're going to grow out of it. You're going to grow out of it. The next thing you know, I'm a senior in high school, and I'm not looking up colleges I want to go to. I'm looking up wrestling schools. And my mom is like, "Oh God, he's really trying to do this." So she made a deal with me. She's like, "You give me 4 years of college, I'll support whatever you do." And so I graduated from Ball State University in May of 2017. And then in September of 2017, I started my training at the House of Truth Wrestling School in Michigan, which is funny because I believe my mom was hoping that college would also help me grow out of wanting to be, a professional wrestler. But if anything, my mindset was everything I'm doing now is just working towards that. Even this piece of paper I'm about to get is going to help, fund and support the dream. Right. So that way, while I'm out there chasing it, this piece of paper is going to help make that much easier. And there were people who told me after I finished training and I've been wrestling matches and stuff like that, there were those that told me, they're like, "I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't think you could do it. I didn't think you were going to do it. I thought, it wasn't going to work out." But what's funny was hearing those that say back to me, and I don't know why I counted you out, because every step of the way, whenever I've counted you out and doubted you, you proved me wrong. So I'm surprised I didn't think you would do it this time. And I tell people when it comes to dreams, that's kind of the issue. A lot of people, when they have dreams, and they tell people their dreams, which honestly sometimes you shouldn't do. You tell people your dreams and they'll turn you into a nightmare. But when you tell people your dreams, a lot of times they'll try to say, "Well, that's impossible." And I would tell people, my dreams may be improbable and they may even seem illogical, but they're far from impossible because someone did it before me, someone did it before them, someone did it before them, so on and so forth. I just got to put the work in. Because that's also the difference between a dream and a goal. My uncle who just passed used to tell me, a dream without work is just wishful thinking. And so, he also was the one that kind of pushed me in that whole, I have this dream. Here's what I have to do to make that dream come true. And I've been making it come true. I've been living it. And not only have I been living it, I've seen a lot of doubters turn into believers along the way.
That's just, wow. It's just an amazing story. And, I became friends with you on Facebook a little while back, and I always love the messages that you put, you post on there. They always seem like, it's almost like you kind of have this, like little bit of like a talent. Like, have you ever thought about, or do you do any kind of like motivational speaking?
Actually, before I stepped foot in the ring, I was doing motivational speaking.
It shows.
Yeah, I was doing motivational speaking. I was getting paid to do it too. That's the nice part, when you get paid to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was doing motivational speaking. And granted, then gigs started to slow down. And honestly, motivation started to slow down. When you have some hard times, some hard years, you start to kind of lose that motivation. But my uncle who just passed away, his son, who was his junior, he actually passed away a few years ago, actually. Which, a parent should never have to bury their kid.
100% agree with that.
But I remember that when he passed away, I lost a lot of motivation. Mm-hmm. And I kind of was like, I didn't want to do it. And it really was my uncle that was like, when things get hard, that's when you're needed the most. Mm-hmm. Even when things get hard for you, that is when you're needed the most. And like, there have been times recently that have been hard, but then I also realized sometimes I can share what I'm going through or what I'm feeling, and I might be either talking to myself, but it also might land with somebody else.
Absolutely.
I'll see a post where somebody will post a thirst trap and get like 200 reactions. I'll see somebody post a picture of what food they ate that day, might get 90 reactions. Somebody might post a promo picture, it might get whatever. And I might post one of my motivational things, and maybe at best it gets like 20. And my friend was like, how does that make you feel? And I'm like, that's 20 people whose lives I helped make better. Or that's 20 people who I was able to reach, and maybe they were able to hear what I was saying. That's 20 people who maybe were having a rough day and didn't want to be here anymore. And my message maybe kept them there that much longer. And that may not be the case either, But when my cousin passed away, his homegoing service, because in my family we don't believe in funerals, we believe in homegoings. Unless you're a bad person, it might be a funeral, but we believe in homegoings. And at his homegoing service, his homegoing was standing room only. We had to turn people away, people that came from different states and countries. We had to tell them, you can't be here because there's not enough room for the family, let alone you. And seeing how he was remembered, and then my uncle, and seeing just some of the love that my family is giving, and seeing how he passed away. Because we were talking about this beforehand, the people listening won't know. My uncle actually passed away helping somebody. He was 70 something years old, and he was helping push somebody's car out of the snow. This is him after having a heart attack and stroke, not even just over a year ago. And he helped somebody push their car out of the snow. And he came back inside, he sat in his chair, and he passed away. And seeing that my uncle in that moment will always be remembered as not only being himself, but being a hero. He may be stubborn, but he went out of his way to help somebody. And my cousin, seeing that he had so much love that you would have thought his homegoing service was a nightclub. Nah, your ID says you can't get in. You don't got the right last name, And when I post what I post, it makes me do that because I remember saying something to my uncle at my cousin's homegoing, and he said to me, "It's things like this that make you ask, how do you want to be remembered versus how you will be remembered?"
Mm-hmm.
And in this business, though I would love to be remembered as the greatest, though I would love to be remembered as somebody who conquered the world and was successful, at the end of the day, I want to be remembered as somebody who helped people, who loved people, who was a good person, who was a good man, who wanted to see people win, who wanted to see people be better and do better. A lot of times in the wrestling business, people are so selfish, people are so self-absorbed, and people are also very unforgiving, because I know first impressions are a hell of a thing, but a lot of times people are having a bad day, or they're young and inexperienced, or you never know what's going on with these people. And a lot of times people will hold you to that one-time meeting. For me, if I can just help spread an ounce of love and influence one person to be a better person, and like a domino effect, they pay that forward and they just keep on influencing somebody who influences somebody else, I did my part in the world. And that's kind of what I want to do. And if I can't even do that, if I can at least make somebody smile, then I did my job.
Wow, that's just amazing, and just, man, I'm speechless with that, because it's just I just really appreciate everything you say, because it's just, I think about the journey that I've been on with my life since my dad got sick, and then since his passing, and much kind of like you said, you went through, when your cousin passed away, you went through some really rough times, and you lost, your motivation. And I kind of did the same thing with my dad. I dealt with my dad's death. I turned to food. I put on so much weight. And then just one day I got on the scale. It was actually about middle of September. I think it was September. Yes, it was September 18th of last year. I got on the scale, and I saw what it said, and I'm just like thinking to myself, it's like, why do I keep doing this to myself? And it's just, I think that moment there was like, I need to do something and stop using my dad's death as an excuse or rationalizing why I put on all this weight and eating it. And I went and did something about it. I went and joined Weight Watchers actually later that day. And I'm happy to report that as of yesterday, when I had my weekly weigh-in, I'm down a little over 70 pounds from where I was back in September.
Hell yeah, man.
and
That's
that. So
beautiful.
I had CCW owner John Bullard on a couple weeks. He's been on my show a couple of times. I just had him on a couple weeks ago, and we'll get to, CCW and John here in a little bit. But one of the first things when I got on camera with him, the first thing he said to me was, DDJ, man, you look so different. Because I was at the show in October. When I was at the show in October, I was still over, I want to say I was at that time, I think I was I was still over 300 pounds and stuff, so it's just I'm just really anxious to see a lot of the guys that I talked to at the show in October when I come to the show in April, just because I want them to see, because I look, I feel, I'm a different person than I was back then. And it's just now it's just amazing. And just hearing about, and like you mentioned about how you talked about, oh yeah, you'll see somebody post this thing, oh, this is what I ate, they get like so many likes, this is what somebody's did or whatever, and they get so many likes. And then you talked about, you post one of your motivational quotes, which are one of my favorite things to look at when I go on Facebook all the time and stuff. And you talked about how you get like 20 something likes, and then you were asked how you felt about that, and you just talk about how just that even if you did one person, it's worth it. And it's just having people come to me like John himself. I've had some friends, message me and say, hey, I'm so proud of you for what you've done and stuff. You've actually inspired me to start losing weight. And it's just, to me, that's the best part about this journey that I've been on, is that I've inspired others to do the same.
Man, I'm going to say this. I'm a fan of you.
Thank you.
Because, one, I do want to address something.
Yes.
When you lose somebody, that causes a trauma. And when you have a trauma, you have to heal it. And sometimes we heal that trauma in not the best of ways. But the thing is, we have to heal it. And so I don't want you to be so down on yourself about the weight you put on, because food is a sense of comfort. I mean, even the people during COVID, who gained weight during COVID, we were in a traumatic time period. We were dealing with the pandemic. And so what was our comfort? Food. We didn't have the comfort of people. We didn't have the comfort of normalcy. So what did we do? We found what we found to be comfortable. Yep. So I don't want you to down yourself. But what I do want to say is this, though. I am proud of you for seeing that the way that you were comforting yourself and trying to heal yourself either was not healing you or was hurting you as much as it was healing you, and choosing to do what you can to better yourself. So I'm going to tell you, if no one tells you, Paragon's proud of you. And I'm thankful for you to not only have me on this podcast, but sharing your story with me. And also I'm thankful for you to seeing that there was something in you that you wanted to change. And instead of talking about it, you decided to be about it, Right. So I just want to say, and also thank you for liking what I post, man, and because, like I said, I don't necessarily post the stuff so that way people like, oh, that's cool. But like, I post it so that way it can, impact people. It can help people. So to know that when I post stuff, you say you look forward to it. I know I posted I was going to take a break from social media and all that stuff. But even hearing you, it makes me think like, maybe I need to still kind of post some stuff. I still might take a break just so that way I can make sure that even what I'm putting out there is right with a clear mind. But just know I appreciate you more than you realize, man.
Oh, I appreciate you saying those very nice things and stuff, and yeah, it's just like I said, it's just, and it wasn't for lack of, people, kind of like my mom was, and my mom and I would talk about this all the time, because I talk to my mom almost every day, either on my way to work, on my way home, whatever, I try to talk to her for a little bit every day and stuff. And she would always tell me, like, when my weight was really getting out of control, she would I don't remember exactly how she would word it, but she was always afraid. Like, she would tell me, it's like, oh, I always used to think that were mad, at the way how I worded things when I was kind of saying you need to lose weight and stuff. And I told her, it's like, I know why you did it, because you were concerned and stuff, but I just needed that one moment for where I saw what everybody else was seeing and stuff, and realized that I needed to do something about that. And getting on that scale was that moment that I needed. And like I said, it's just been, it's just been just the last few months. It's just really just been, just such a transformation in my life, because not only have I lost the weight, I've changed a lot of things in my life that I didn't even think I was capable of doing. So it was just really, and I'll be honest with you, doing this podcast has actually been very helpful and therapeutic, and, and me dealing not only with the loss of my dad, but just with this whole thing with the pandemic and, being let go from my job at the time for, and, trying to find just things to do to fill the void. And this show has really done it. And it's just, getting to know, the guys behind the characters like yourself, getting to become really good friends with John and just everybody else in the company and stuff. It's just been the last year. Everybody talks about how bad this year 2020 was with the pandemic and everything, but there's a lot of good things that happened during this time as well. And that's kind of the thing that I've decided to focus on, because I'm always a glass half full guy. I'm an optimist, and stuff. I always try to look on the bright side of things and stuff. So it's just, I and just like seeing what you post on there, it's just nice to know that, there are other people out there that choose to have this kind of outlook on life, despite all the different things that, all the obstacles that we've each encountered, in our lives and stuff. So kind of getting back into the wrestling again. So you talked about that you went to train was with House of Truth, correct? Now that was, that's Truth Martini, correct?
Indeed it is.
Perfect. So what was it like training under him, and what were what kind of things did you do when you went to his school?
Well, number one, training under Truth Martini, you're going to get so much knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest with you, I wish more people understood the just sheer intelligence that resides in that man's mind. His mind for the business is unparalleled, and if more people would either pick the brain of someone like him or sit under a learning tree of someone like him, this business would be so much better off. And it was funny is because you can learn so much from being under his learning tree and just being one of his students, that many people will sometimes think, you might have an ego to you because you know too much too soon.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just a matter of he wises you up and he educates you to things. And sometimes people just kind of got their own egos. Wrestling is filled with egos. And that's kind of one thing I liked about him, was that his thing was he was trying to kill egos before they even started,
Mm-hmm.
He was trying to just bring out the best in people. What's funny is a lot of times when people hear that I trained at House of Truth, especially when I first started wrestling, I was getting like crazy respect, because they're like, oh, you went to House of Truth? Oh, I hear it's rough up there, and I hear it's this, and I hear it's that. Because sometimes the class will start with 17, and if you're lucky, the class ends with at least one student.
Wow.
Yeah, so my class, it wasn't as big, but my class started with 4 and ended, well, technically my class started with 7. It ended with 3, and I am the only active person from my class.
Wow.
Yeah, so, and granted, that could just be a matter of circumstances, that could be a matter of life, that could be a matter of dedication. We don't know. I couldn't say what happened with my fellow brothers and sisters that were in class training with me, but what I can say is that we all went to the best possible wrestling school you can go to. Now, granted, that does not mean you don't go to other schools and learn. That does not mean you don't go to seminars and learn.
Mm-hmm.
But to get a core foundation of what this business is about and how to be successful in it, I don't recommend any place other than House of Truth to start your journey. Now, granted, where you continue from there is a different story. But House of Truth is where I think most people should start their journey at.
Wow. So did you just work with Truth Martini, or were there some other wrestlers there that you also trained under?
Oh, no. So there's a wrestler named Paul Bowser who was though it was True School, Paul was the head trainer. So he was the one taking most of the bumps, showing a lot of stuff if Martin wasn't there because he was on the road, whatever may have you. We would have guys come in and help, work us out. Like Alex Shelley might come in and help out. Rhino might come in and help out. Kevin Calloway of The Purge, he would definitely help out with training. Isaiah Bronner would help out with training. Akil Ganesh. There's a lot of guys that will come through, and if they were previous students who were returning and they would help out, or if they were people who were just in the area. Malcolm Monroe III came by one time to instill knowledge and help do some drills and stuff. like we had some really dope people that came through the school, and they would either come in for a training session or help teach you things. They would show you the ropes about stuff. Oh, and just to let you know, and I think maybe this is the part that like makes people get worry about House of Truth. So we have Strikes and Chops Day.
Okay.
And so on Strikes and Chops Day, people leave bruised. People sometimes leave with lacerations and blood in the mouth or whatever. And to me, that's a day. That day and the day you take your first bump are the days that really kind of let people know if this is something they want to do. Because there was a dude in my class that we were sure on Chops Day he was going to quit. Because on Chops Day, however many people are in that class, they get 20 chops a piece on the one person.
Wow.
So if there's 7 people in class, somebody's taking 140 chops.
Oh man.
And if somebody's heavy-handed, it probably feels like more than that.
Right.
So like I said, that might be one. Also, shoot forearms where somebody tries to knock your clock off, and so we've had interesting days, but one, it makes you tough. 2, it makes you appreciate what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And 3, it lets you know who hasn't. I apologize. I've been up since you're an hour behind me, so I've been up since 4 o'clock your time. So
well, again, thank you for doing this with me and stuff.
No worries.
So how long were you now? Was House of Truth, was that the only school you went to? You didn't go anywhere else, did you? Or
that's the only school that I went to when it comes to a matter of my training.
mm-hmm.
Now I've had gone to other schools because maybe I could get some ring time in, or
mm-hmm.
I could practice some stuff. But when it comes to actual training, House of Truth is the only place I train. Now I've had mentors and I've been to seminars, but when it comes to actual schools, it was House of Truth.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So how long were you did it from when the time you started training, how long was it between when you your first day of training to your very first match?
Okay, so my first day of training was September 6th of 2017.
Mm-hmm.
My last day of training was literally the day before Thanksgiving. We had a 12-week course. And my first wrestling match was December 17th of 2017.
Mm-hmm.
So
about like 3 months.
Like just over 3 months. So it like December, if I had my first wrestling match on December 6th, then that would have been exactly a month. So just over 3 months was my first wrestling match.
And what was going through your mind, like as you're standing behind the curtain, that be right before you're going out for your very first match?
Oh, I was a cocky son of a bitch. I went in with the mindset of like, nobody in here is as good as me. Nobody in here is, and like, granted, that's all inward. I wasn't going to say that outright. But
right.
Inward, nobody's in here as good as me. Nobody in here looks as good as I do. No one is dressed as good as I'm dressed. Nobody's going to compare to me. I'm going to have the best match. I've busted my ass to get to this point. I've sacrificed to get to this point. I've missed funerals, birthdays, first hellos, last goodbyes, births, weddings, whatever, just for this one moment. And I'm not letting a damn thing stop me. And I went out there and I killed it. I actually had people tell me I had no business working for that company because they were like, from the one match you wrestled, and that was somebody that they thought was one of their best hands in the ring. And they were like, and it was your first match ever, and you look like you were leagues better than him. It's not a place you to wrestle anymore.
Wow.
And that didn't help with the ego, but it also did humble me at the same time because I was like, man, it lets me know that the hard work that I've been putting forth is paying off.
That's awesome.
And it felt good in that moment, but at the same time, that should have been like my wake-up call when it came to sacrifices, because this business, it takes a lot. I went into wrestling training engaged. I came out 6 months in the business after an ROH training, single. I have had, probably since I started wrestling training, I've probably had like 4 or 5 serious relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I went into it engaged at one point in time. And, between relationships that didn't work, between friendships that didn't work, between friendships that got lost because of the business in the business, jobs, and so many things that you lose along the way, but you also gain so much at the same time. This business at times can feel like it's all take, but sometimes it's all take if that's all you're looking for. If that's all you can see. If you look a little deeper, sometimes you'll see that it gives so much. And honestly, that mindset, just to kind of come back around full circle, comes from my trainer. Martin, or Truth Martini, I should say. He instilled so many lessons and so much about this business into us that, to me, if there's somebody who's a House of Truth student who's not wrestling, and it's not due to the fact that they're not physically able to wrestle, it's because you either didn't have it or fell in love with it, or whatever may have you. It might just be you weren't listening, or maybe you just didn't want it, and that's fine. But for those that didn't listen, I feel sorry for them, because if you listened to him, you would have realized that there's so much to this business that it can do for you, but also that it can do against you. And it's just a matter of what you take from everything, what you give to everything. Everything in the universe, and especially in wrestling, is give and take.
So one of the things, and you actually kind of gave me a great segue into my next question. You talked about all the values and lessons and everything that Truth instilled in you during your time there. Was there one lesson or one piece of advice that he gave you that really kind of stuck out more than anything else?
Yes, because I've gotten a lot of advice, but from Truth. And to me, this is profound. And I tell this to a lot of wrestlers who are trying to find who they are, or trying to try something new or something different. Martin sat us all down the very first day, and then he had this exact same conversation with us the very last day. And he says, guys, he has that really deep, raspy voice. Guys, look at wrestling as a whole. I want you to look at wrestling and what it is right now. Think about all the wrestlers that you know are in wrestling, independent wrestling, TV, international. I want you to look at the wrestling business as a whole. I want you to think about what's missing. Now be that. And to me, when you really think about that, that's profound. So many people want to be the next this or the second that. And he's like, no, be the first this. Be something that is missing. Don't be something that you can dig your hand to the chip bag and find another replica of, It's like with the claw game. When you do the claw game, you should not be able to pick up 5 of the exact same thing. Otherwise, the ratio is off. Pick up a variety of different things, you feel like you actually got your money's worth. There's a lot of people in wrestling that are doing a lot of the same stuff, that have a lot of the same looks, they're doing a lot of the same things. And that's why I've made it my effort to look different and keep evolving my look. Because it also feels like every time I get my own signature look and do something different, then I see on social media somebody's doing something similar. And it's not a matter of I'm scared that they're going to get the same, they're going to steal my look. No, they've already taken my look. Do they wear it as good as I do? No. But do I want to be associated with that person? No. Because somebody might see somebody in a bodysuit and they say, this black guy in a bodysuit was being a diva at a wrestling show. And they assume it's the first black guy in a bodysuit they see. So they might assume it's me, or something like that. Or, this black guy rocking this or rocking that, or this wrestler who was whatever. And it's like, so I want to cut off the comparison of it potentially doing something wrong. But 2, I want to call off the comparison, because my thing is, if I'm different enough, you can't compare. I want to be one of a kind. I want to be like no other. I'm of a different breed. I'm of a different league. I'm of a different tax bracket, is what I tell people. You look at a Chicagoland Championship Wrestling locker room. There's not a single person in that locker room that looks like me. But at the same time, that's what's beautiful about Chicagoland Championship Wrestling. There aren't a lot of people in the locker room that look alike, period. Which is, you can't really say that about some other wrestling locker rooms in the Midwest, Indiana, Illinois, whatever may have you. And to me, it was Truth Martini telling me about how important originality, but also thinking about what is missing and being that. To me, that was key.
That's awesome. I love it. That's I always feel like, you can see like 5 guys do a 450, or everybody throws super kicks, and it's just, yeah, they're great and stuff, but when you see it time and time again, it's just kind of loses its luster. And then you see something, that's different than the rest. And to me, well, yeah, like I said, the 450s are great. All these moonsaults and everything, are cool and stuff, but it's just, you see them all the time. But then you see that one thing that is like unlike anything else you see in a show, or when you go to a show, or when you're watching something on TV. And me personally, that one different thing always tends to stand out more than seeing, like, I'm watching a 2-hour show and seeing, like, 5 different people do the same move. And it's just, I really loved that answer. So once you were done training stuff, what were some of the promotions that you've wrestled in? Obviously we know CCW, but like, tell my audience a little bit more about some of the other places you've worked.
I used to work for a company called Infinite Pro Wrestling. That's actually where I won my first 3 championships. I held the Delaware State Championship, the IPW Internet Championship, and the IPW Fury TV Championship. So I won my first 3 championships with that company. Kind of parted ways on not the best of terms. But I do wish them nothing but the best, because they kind of helped me become myself, in a matter of allowing me to have the confidence to realize who I am. And I also learned a lot about the inside of the business from working with that company. I also work for and have worked for Emerge Wrestling, Wrestling Theology Fellowship, also known as WTF, which I think is hilarious. I've done a show for War Wrestling, which is one of the biggest companies in Ohio. I've done shows for IWA Mid South. I have also done shows in Michigan. I did a show called Horror Slam. There actually was the second ever and last champion of a company called World's Finest Wrestling. Probably one of the most talented and stacked locker rooms in indie wrestling. It was incredible. But just when it came down to life and finances and stuff, the company just wasn't able to continue. But yeah, I was their second ever, as well as their last champion. I even was their champion when they switched over championship belts. So they went from their old one to a really nice one that was kind of made just for me, because it was a white strap and had purple inside the gold. And I was like, yeah, but yeah, I've worked for a slew of companies. I've traveled to about 9 different states. I think I've worked for, at this point, 29 different wrestling companies. Had the pandemic not happened last year, I only had 2 free weekends in the entire calendar, and I was going to be going a bunch of. I was supposed to go to Mexico, Germany, the UK, a bunch of different other states. And as the trajectory was looking, I would have had at least, just last year, I would have added 108 matches to my resume. And I ended up only ending the year with, I think, like 25, which, considering the pandemic and me not having a local show near me, that's still pretty good. But man, the pandemic kind of shut down life, but that's kind of one of the reasons why I love Chicagoland Championship Wrestling, because not only are they doing things right, but they're opening doors for guys like me to kind of get our grooves back and go to those places that were taken away from us once upon a time.
Yeah, it's Chicagoland Championship Wrestling, and like I mentioned before, I've become really good friends with John and stuff, but just Chicagoland Championship Wrestling has really become, just for me personally as a fan, it's just really had such a big impact on my life, because like I said, majority of the guys I've had on my show all have, were on the, I've had them on, before, since the first show and stuff, and like I mentioned before, John's become a great friend of mine. He's, given me some opportunities to do some things with the promotion, things that I never even would dream of when I first started doing this. And it's just Chicagoland Championship Wrestling has just had such a huge impact on my life this past year. And it's great to see, the love for CCW being reciprocated by the wrestlers that I've had on the show. So one thing I wanted to ask you, how similar and how different is your character to who you are as a person when you're not the character? Like, what are the differences and the similarities between yourself and your character?
Well, see, that's the thing. Me and Paragon aren't characters. Paragon's an extension of me. Paragon is just me turned up. Uh, there's some people in wrestling, they have characters. Some people have gimmicks, but then there are those of us who have personas.
Right.
And when you have a persona is just you personified. It's an amplified version of you. I look at it like this way. Rocky Maivia was a character or a gimmick of Dwayne Johnson. The Rock is a persona of Dwayne Johnson because The Rock and Dwayne Johnson are the same person. But Rocky Maivia was a gimmick and character that he thought he had to be, you know? What's his name? The Taskmaster was a gimmick or character of Steve Williams. Stone Cold Steve Austin is Steve Williams. You know, there's a lot of people don't realize that Steve Williams is actually
the Ringmaster?
Ringmaster.
Okay.
Ringmaster. Yeah, Ringmaster. My bad. I was just watching Marvel before you called. So, but yeah. What? Yeah. I was watching WandaVision. I was trying to watch that Black Widow movie, and I can't find it anywhere. I could have swore it came out last year.
It was supposed to. It was supposed to, but with everything going on, it got pushed back.
They got okay. I was like, why can't I find it? You would think it, but okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's I think if I remember correctly, I believe Black Widow is now slated to come out. Oh, God, I want to say I'd ask my friend Daryl, who's like my movie guy. But yeah, I want to say it's sometime this year. I can't remember if it was like summer or fall, but it did get pushed back. So
okay, but yeah, so like there's a difference between personas and characters and gimmicks. A gimmick to me, a character is you pretending, you know, to be something. A gimmick is you trying to embody the thing you're pretending to be, which can be true for a lot of people. There's a lot of times you'll see gimmicks in wrestling and people do a great job at it because they embody, you know, the gimmick. Like I'll take Undertaker for example. You know, when he's the mortician or he's the dead man, but there's a lot of him in that. That's more of a gimmick versus when he was the American Badass.
Right.
That was him being him. That's his persona. Yep. And now when he was able to fuse all that together, once you consider how old he had gotten and how much time he had spent with the character, then yeah, you could probably argue that his last few years in wrestling, those were also, you know, a persona, even though, you know, it's the whole dead man thing. But yeah, with me and Paragon, we're very similar. Like when I talk about me being Mr. 23 positions and 1,000 submissions, drip flayer, hip swayer, Mr. Steal Your Girl, long drip style, all night, drive a wild, give it back to you and make you say thank you. Oh no, that's shoot. That's shoot. I am literally Paragon, fantastic lady killer, romantic. I am a ladies' man. I am somebody who has stolen many girls, women, wives. Try not to do that last part no more, though. I ain't trying to get chased out of houses with a gun anymore. but no, like that's, and then also this the flashiness, the fashion sense, the way I speak. You know, it may not be as jazzy when I talk, but it's still got music in it when I speak. The musical influences and what I do. I've actually was singing before I was able to talk. My very first words were song lyrics, and then they tried to ask me a question, and I was but I grew up in the music business. My mom actually did background vocals for many artists such as Bone Thugs and Harmony, Nelly, D12.
Oh, wow.
So like I grew up in the studio. I grew up in music, and I just also took that and I put that into you know, my wrestling persona. You know, I'm actually trying to work on some music as we speak because every time that we get a shutdown, I'm like, all right, time to, you know, go back in the lab and write something. But yeah, Paragon and I, we're one and the same. I would just say he's the amplified version of me. Paragon is the best and worst of me. You know, when I'm a good guy, Paragon is the best of me, and when I'm a heel, he and honestly, it's who you talk to, because there's certain times that I say stuff as Paragon, and I mean everything I'm saying. I feel everything I'm saying, and I know there's somebody in the audience who also agrees with what I'm saying, and so to them, I might be their hero. in that moment because because that is, the best of it. I've been in an audience one time where I was the only black face in a backwards, let's say, red state.
Okay.
And there were about like 3 or 4 people of color in the audience. And so I was saying some stuff that was rubbing some people the wrong way, but I meant every single thing I was saying. And those people of color in the audience also agreed with me, and it's because, to some people's villain is another person's hero. But yeah, Paragon is the best and worst of me. Paragon is me amplified, me personified. Paragon is me when I am at my extremes. I guess that's the best way I could say it. When I'm my most happy, when I'm my most petty, when I'm my most angry, when I'm my most sad, when I'm my most ruthless, when I am my most joyous. That is Paragon.
Wow. So a couple more questions here, and we'll start wrapping it up. So we talked about at the beginning of the interview, like, how your early favorites, were The Rock and Eddie Guerrero. Do you follow the current product nowadays, WWE, AEW, Impact, Ring of Honor, all that stuff? And if so, who are some of your favorites that are you're seeing on TV every week?
I don't follow it as tough as I used to, but
Okay.
I do follow it.
Mhm.
Mainly WWE. But when I do follow other companies, I'll start from the area. So Impact Wrestling, and I know some of them just left to go to the Fed, but my Ohio boys, the Rascals, I definitely
Yes.
follow them. I followed them. Ohio represent. Um, I follow Moose.
Oh,
I love
Moose is
seeing
one of
him,
my favorites right now. He is just on another level.
and I love seeing his progression.
Yeah.
I follow Willie Mack. That's actually a match that I really want to have, is me versus Willie Mack. I feel like our styles could work very well together.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm a huge Eric Young fan. When he
Mhm.
came back to Impact, I was very happy. And also, the Machine Guns, House of Truth represent.
Yep.
Um, yeah, there's a bunch of guys that are in Impact that I like. When it comes to ROH, I used to be a huge Jay Lethal fan.
Mhm.
I used to be a huge Jay Lethal fan growing up because, once again, the representation, it matters. But when it comes to ROH, there's one guy who, two. I'm gonna say two, and they
Okay.
happen to be in the exact same stable. And honestly, it's four. But Shane Taylor and his entire crew.
Yeah.
One, Shane Taylor, Cleveland represent. I see you, my guy. He actually was somebody who, when I was first getting in the business and right when I was leaving training, he not only gave me advice, but every once in a while he keeps up with me. And
That's awesome.
to me, that means a lot that, somebody of that stature, can actually reach out and, and give some insight. So him, O'Shea Edwards, and their whole crew, I got big respect for them. And I love seeing that they're successful and that they're thriving. Um, and in New Japan, uh, I am a huge Kenta fan.
Yes.
I'm a huge Kenta fan. I was a fan of him when he was in WWE. It just wasn't the biggest fan of how he was getting used after a while.
Mhm.
But I'm a huge Kenta fan. I love seeing him back home. I love seeing him be himself. I am a Will Ospreay fan.
Yes.
I would say I'm huge on him, but I love his dedication and his love for wrestling, and his
Mhm.
fashion sense is phenomenal. Okay, like the way he dresses, I'm like, maybe Paragon need to hit him up.
Why not?
Zack Sabre Jr., especially because I in myself am a technician, so I love seeing that. Ishii, so there's a couple guys in New Japan I like. When we go over to AEW, I am a definite fan of uh, Pac. I
Mhm.
love him. I love the Lucha Bros. Honestly, I'm a huge mark for Ray Phoenix and Pentagon Cero Mero. So I love those guys. I've always been a Taz fan, so seeing him on TV has been
Oh
doing
yeah.
wonders for me. I'm a huge Taz fan. I got a lot of respect for what Cody's doing, a lot of respect for what Moxley's doing. So there's a lot of stuff there that I like. And then, before I even go to the Fed, and then MLW, shout out to my brother Calvin Tankman, as well as my buddy Brian Pillman Jr. I love seeing them
Oh,
go
I'm a
get it.
huge Pillman Jr. fan. I
I
love.
love seeing them get it. I love seeing the homie Myron Reed going out there and getting it. So Shout out to MLW. Now, when we come to the Fed, all right, and like I said, this is the one I've been following the most, though I'm still not following the product. Roman Reigns is the best heel in professional wrestling.
Agreed.
And honestly, I think it's about time people realize that he's been this good for years. People just weren't willing to give him a chance.
Yep.
Not just his in-ring, but his promos and all that. So Roman Reigns, Roman Reigns, Roman Reigns, Roman Reigns. If you don't like it, change the channel or just change your mindset and appreciate the greatness that's before you. Because he's the closest thing in WWE and probably all of professional wrestling to a star we actually have is Roman Reigns. After Roman, I would have to say Hurt Business, especially MVP.
Oh, yes, I'm a big
what MVP has been doing with that group. I'm happy to see the homie Carlito back. I got to share a show with him, and he was just a really, really cool dude.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm a huge Sasha Banks fan, and also I'm a huge Bianca Belair fan. So seeing Bianca win was really nice. I know people keep trying to say like her feet touched the ground. Now, I watched that video back 6 times, and her feet did not touch the ground.
It did not.
One of her feet skimmed it. I'm not gonna lie, 1 foot touch. But Shawn Michaels said, 1 foot touching the ground don't make an elimination. So Bianca Belair, she won that. She deserved it. I love Edge being back now. I love Orton. I love all members of the New Day. Who else is out right now on the main roster? Because I know they try to say NXT is the same, but the main roster. So I talked to you about people who gave me advice. Keith Lee was also someone who gave me advice when I was first getting into the business. It's actually when him and Shane Taylor were still a tag team. So that's was kind of dope seeing them be the Pretty Boy Killers. That was kind of cool. So I'm a huge fan of him as well as Mia Yim. Reckoning, I guess is what she's called now.
Yep.
And then when we go to NXT, I mean, I'm gonna not be able to stop going if you got Balor, you got Dunn, you have Kyle O'Reilly, you have Phantasm and his group. There's just so much amazing talent going on right now. Also, I'd be remiss if I didn't shout out Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, and Apollo Crews, who are also doing some of the best work of their career right now. Cesaro, Daniel Bryan, AJ Styles. I mean, the list goes on and on. I'm a fan of wrestling. When it comes down to it, I'm a fan of wrestling. I'm a fan of good wrestling. I'm a fan of great wrestling. I'm a huge fan of technical wrestling. But a lot of the guys that I mentioned that I like them because they're storytellers. A lot of people think the moves matter so much, and they do a lot of moves, and I don't always understand what those moves mean. But when you have a storyteller in the ring who can also do incredible moves, it makes wrestling that much more important. It makes wrestling that much better. And to me, when people figure out how to take star power, charisma / your social media use, pair that with in-ring athleticism, and then also incorporate storytelling, that is how we get wrestling back to where we want it to be. That's how we get it back to pop culture. Hell, that's where we start making some real money again, even on the independent scene. That's what when I look at the product today, that's what the things that I see that are either missing or could become something.
Awesome. So a couple more questions here. First off, we've mentioned it a few times and stuff, Chicagoland Championship Wrestling. How did you coming to work for John and CCW come about?
Well, he was announcing a while back, like a whole year before Chicagoland even became a thing. He was announcing that he planned on starting a show. And this was when I was kind of red hot and everything was kind of coming up Paragon. And I shot him a message and was like, hey, I would love to work for you. And I sent him over my resume and all that stuff. And he was impressed. But he was also impressed by the way that I approached him. I approached him like a professional. I sent him an actual resume. I sent him matches and promo pics, references and stuff like that. I treated it like it was like a job interview. So there was that. But a lot of people don't realize this, but in 2019, I went through a dark period, and during that dark period, Paragon didn't want to be here no more. He wasn't laughing in the purple rain because too many doves were crying. And and John saw the video I posted, because I posted a video after certain things thankfully did not go the way I thought they would. And I pretty much was reaching out to people, trying to help people, and let them know that they're struggling, get help, let them know that, I was going to take a break from wrestling. But, when I come back, if you need me, I'll be there for you. And John was somebody who reached out to not only be there for me, but he told me, he's like, when you're ready to come back to wrestling, you have a home at Chicagoland. And, the fact that he was just so giving and so understanding and so loving. He and I aren't friends. We're brothers, He and I talk on a daily basis. Yep. I talk to John on a daily basis more than my actual blood relatives, probably. No, I do talk to him on a daily basis more than my blood relatives. We'll talk about wrestling. We'll talk about life. We'll talk about food, because he and I are both huge foodies. We're always saying, like, when he'll be like, I'm telling you, when you come to town, he's like, we're going to get some sushi, or we're going to get some hibachi. He's like, I know some great places, brother. We can really gonna do it up. And he's like, we're gonna feast like kings. He's just a great dude. Like he is the best of us, Yes. John Bullard. And when it comes to not just wrestling, but this world, John is the best of us. And if I'm being honest with you, he is probably one of the key things that got me through 2020. Like you said, there were a lot of good things in 2020, and I did my best to find them out. But he was one of the best things in our relationship through 2020, because just the fact that to know that there's somebody who's there for me when I don't feel like there's anybody there, it was just incredible. And he's a fan of my promos. He's a fan of my in-ring. He's a fan of my attire and the way that my gear looks. And he was like, we got to have you on this show. And apparently I don't disappoint, because he wants us back in April to slap around No Coast again, because they didn't learn their lesson the first time.
So last question I got before I give you some time to promote some, like any upcoming shows and, how people can support you by buying your merch. You're known as Paragon, and you're part of a group called the Tribunal. So let's give your guys in the Tribunal a little airtime here. Tell me a little bit more about your guys in the Tribunal.
All right. Well, first you got He Is More, who you guys will be getting introduced to him in April. He was supposed to be there, but when you think you know the rules, I changed the game. When you think you have the answers, I changed the question. And so I introduced my other tag partner, my other brother, Jay Storm. And that's exactly who we are. We're brothers. We're a family. We are three very different individuals that have come together with a common goal. And our goal is we want to eradicate the cancer and impurity in professional wrestling. For far too long, anybody has had the ability to call themselves a professional wrestler. Anybody has had the ability to step foot in the ring and try to claim that they're a professional wrestler. Most of them are playing wrestler. Most of them don't even love professional wrestling. They love their place in professional wrestling, and they love the ability to call themselves a professional wrestler. And ain't nothing professional about them, and they're hardly even a wrestler. And so we deem it our job to not only push them out, but then to correct the business in our image, because we also realize that there's so many companies that we go to and we win the championships, we put butts in seats, we have the longest merch tables, and yet we're still overlooked. And why is that? Why are we asking for a seat at tables that we have built? So we decided we're no longer asking for seats at tables. We decided that not only are we sitting at this table and on the head of the table, but you don't get to sit with us nor eat a damn thing until we eat first and we tell you you have our permission to eat. And if you don't like it, you got to sit your ass at the kiddie table, or you can get the hell out. You got Jay Storm, and he is the savage of the group. He is the twisted man. This is the type of dude that comes to the ring praying, and when he's praying, he's not praying for himself. He's praying for you, and he's literally asking God, if you don't want me to commit the sins I'm about to commit, the atrocities that I'm about to commit in this ring, the abominations that are going to occur tonight, if you don't want them to happen right now, then you'll stop me, God. And if you don't, then what happens to them is not only on your hands, but it is your will. He is willing to do not only whatever it takes to win, but he finds joy in hurting his opponents. It's fun for him. And if you disrespect us, you disrespect me, he's the one you got to be most scared of. I always tell people, if you stand in front of me, you've messed up. If you stand in front of the big man, you done screwed up. And if you stand in front of Jace, well, Pray to whoever you believe in that they come down and stop him, because it's going to take a divine intervention to keep him off your ass. But then there's the big man. And see, he is one of the best pure athletes in professional wrestling. The fact that he has amazing powerlifting strength combined with incredible and unmatched speed and agility. No one has ever seen someone 300 plus pounds move and wrestle like that with that type of strength. You may see a guy 300 pounds doing a moonsault, but do you see him body pressing, guerrilla military pressing someone also over 300 pounds over his shoulder like they only weigh 100? He's of a different kind. He's of a different beast. He is Ruthian in stature and in presence. We are a collective of three very different individuals who have found familiarity in each other. We have found familiarity in a common goal. We are blood brothers. We've taken the oath, and we stand by each other. And what's also funny is, and as much as I love John, he did not read our contracts when he brought us in. Our contract said that if any tribunal member holds a championship, any tribunal member can defend it. So if Paragon wins the CCW Heavyweight Championship, the big man can defend it for him, because we're all the champion.
Like the Freebird rule?
Oh, we freebird every single title if we so deem.
All right. Well, remind me never to get on your bad side, because I think I
Don't do
might,
it.
soil myself if I ever do that. So please make sure I don't ever get on your bad side.
I mean, as nice as I am, I try to be a very nice person. I try to be an uplifting person. But there's a side of Paragon that No Coast saw a little bit of, and I tried to keep at bay. But there have been people who have been tied down and found a cigar in their eye. There have been people who have been beaten in front of their family and then told their family, "Now clean them up." You know, we don't want to have to do these things, but you don't disrespect us. You don't disrespect our name. You don't disrespect our sport, because this is our sport. This is our world, and everybody else is just squirrels trying to get a nut.
Wow.
And when we're disrespected, got to get dealt with accordingly, because the thing is, we got to send a message. We got to send a message. And a lot of times when you send a message, you try to send a message that everybody can hear, everybody can see, everybody can feel. And No Coast is going to learn that for the second time, because we left them bloody at the last show. This time, they're not walking out, because they're still playing games. They're still being disrespectful. They still trying to be funny. And there's a time and place for ha-has and he-he's, but we're not laughing. And I'm like a broken Xbox. I don't play no games. So if they want to keep on going, if they want to keep on playing all the jibber-jabber and all that stuff they want to do, that's fine. We left them bloody. This time we just going to leave them.
Wow. So one of the best things that we as fans can do to be, be on the good sides of wrestlers is, by buying their merchandise. So, Paragon, this is the time I want to give you to plug, how people can buy your merchandise, and also any shows you got coming up. So the floor is yours.
All right. Well, first, one of the easiest ways to get to my merchandise is following my social media. So if you go to Paragon on Facebook, it's my Facebook page. There's links to my Whaddya Maneuver, as well as for my pro wrestling tees. I have both the Whaddya Maneuver and pro wrestling tees store. You can also get those links on my Instagram page, _Paragon, THE_Paragon. You can also find that on my Twitter, which is the Paragon23, same as my Snapchat, same as my PSN. If you want to add me on PSN, just don't be weird. Too many people are weird on Snapchat. I have to block people, especially you nasty couples that y'all know what y'all do. Also, you can follow Paragon at my motivational pages, Paragon Motivation, or as long as you're cool people, you can actually add me on Facebook at Paragon Christoph St. James. You can add me on Facebook, see some motivation there, hit me up, show support, maybe even ask me there. We can get a link to something. Also, if you want to watch some Paragon wrestling, you go to my YouTube channel, which is also, there's a link to it on my Facebook page.
Awesome. Well, man, what an experience this was. So once again, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I know it wasn't under the best of circumstances with what you're going through right now. And again, my condolences to you and your family. Your uncle's from what you told me, he was a great man, and I'm sure he's going to be watching you from above, rooting you on as you keep on pursuing. So Paragon, thank you so much for the time, man. And I'm sure if it's not before the show, I'm sure I'll probably talk to you beforehand on Facebook or whatever. But if anything, I'll see you at the show coming up in April.
Sounds good, baby. Sounds good. And I thank you for having me.
My pleasure. All right, man. Have a good one.
You too.
This is Tim Storm, former NWA World's Heavyweight Champion. You're listening to What Do You Say with DDJ. If you love professional wrestling, this is where you need to get your information. Don't miss this.
Thank you, Paragon, for sharing so many great stories. Again, my condolences to you and your family for the loss of your uncle. And again, this show is dedicated to his memory. You can reach Paragon on all the various social media platforms, and the information is going to be coming across the screen right now if you're watching this on YouTube. And if you're listening to this wherever you get your podcast from, the information will be in the episode description. Don't forget to check him out along with the rest of the superstars of CCW on Saturday night, April 17th, 2021, as part of CCW's Saturday Night Grapple Masters. Information for the show is coming across the screen right now, and if you're listening to this via audio, the information will be in the episode description. And last but definitely not least, please go to ProWrestlingTees.com, search for Paragon, and you can buy a really cool Paragon shirt. Before I let everyone go, I just want to remind everyone that What Do You Say with DDJ is on Facebook and Twitter. You can follow the show on Facebook at What Do You Say with DDJ, and you can follow the show on Twitter at What Do You Say DDJ. And once again, thank you guys so much for listening to the show. I appreciate the support. Also, please don't forget to buy What Do You Say with DDJ shirt at Pro Wrestling Tees, along with some other great shirts courtesy of Pro Wrestling Junkies. And so that's all the time I have this week. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you in another week with a brand new episode of What Do You Say with DDJ.
If you love professional wrestling and great podcasts, check out What Do You Say with DDJ on Facebook, Twitter, and also on ProWrestlingTees.com. In the search field, just type in DDJ and buy the best professional wrestling podcast shirt around.